All right. Hey, everyone. Hope you guys are having a good conference thus far. We are in a bit of a NFT recovery after a disastrous 2022, I would say. But everyone here in the room, thank you for being here. You guys are the real builders. You guys are the real community that cares about long-term innovation in the space. So with that, why don't we go ahead and do a quick introduction about the panel topic, and then quick introductions of the speakers, and then we can get going. So today we're going to be talking about NFT interoperability and how that's going to affect all different types of markets in the future. And just so everyone understands interoperability, what we mean by that are a couple-fold, right? It's interoperability of standards. We know that NFTs follow these open source standards that allow them to be used in all different types of applications and wallets and things like that. So we'll touch briefly on that. But we're also living in a multi-chain world. And so we're going to talk about what it might mean when NFTs are interoperable across many different chains, whether they're layer ones or app chains, roll-ups, et cetera, and how that may actually make the end user experiences much more interesting. And then the last part that we're going to talk about is, okay, beyond the technological parts of NFTs and their interoperability, what do these new building blocks mean for established markets, right? What's going to happen in the world of gaming or fashion or real-world assets, and how NFT interoperability standards will allow for these new use cases. So that's what we're going to talk about. I am Matthew Liu, co-founder of Origin Protocol. We have two business units, one of which is a DeFi business unit, decentralized finance. We won't go into too much detail today. And the other is an NFT platform, Origin Story. Origin Story allows creators to launch their very own marketplaces and ecosystems. So imagine a creator or project being able to have their own version of a gem or genie on their website with custom branding, with gamification, and social features. So that's what I do, and I'll pass it off to everyone else for a quick introduction.
Okay, thanks, Matthew. Really, happy to join this panel today. I'm Stella Zheng, the co-founder of Rosenbridge. What we're building is a D-app that gets everyone from Web 2 to Web 3 seamlessly. So it's going to be a really fun and creative app that we serve for over 300 creators from the mainstream, like the music, the fashion, and beauty sectors. And they can bring their around like 150 million followers into this new world. So this is what we're doing right now. I'm really open and flexible to talking any topic here, especially about the NFT interpretability, because we support the multi-chain right now. And this is where we are trying to work with all these layers and protocols. And probably next one.
Hey everybody, I'm Vlad. I'm a co-founder at Vanity. We're a social mapping platform which allows you to actually pin collectibles in real-world locations. Think of it sort of like Pokemon Go as a platform. Yeah, I've been in this space for a couple of years now, building project. My background is I'm an engineer by trade. I used to work in the healthcare industry, which has its own interoperability problems. So I'm excited to be on the stage talking about that. Yeah.
Hello, everyone. I'm Kennashka DeSilva. I am a cybersecurity engineer at EY. It's a very small company. And I'm also a community builder within the Miami Tech ecosystem as well. I work also as a founder of Women for Crypto, which is a nonprofit that supports women and mentor them in the Web3 space.
Great. Maybe we'll go backwards this time. So, Kennashka, we talk a little bit about NFT interoperability standards, and I think people here probably know what like ERC 721 is, but then there's 721A, 1155, and there's surely new standards being created as well, right? There's recently from the Zuki team that created ERC 721A. They also have like the physically backed token standard. Vitalik talks about SOBOUND tokens, all these different types of NFTs. Like, how do you think that, why do you think they're important? How do you think that it's going to play out in the ecosystem with what you're working on?
Of course. So I work mainly as a cybersecurity engineer currently. So there's some security concerns that are within the space that we see from a day-to-day basis in particular. So when we talk about interoperability, we want to go back to the early stages of Bitcoin, where Bitcoin was one of the first peer-to-peer network. on a distributed ledger without a permissionless, no permission, no third party in particular to report to, which was amazing. But then we had a little bit of scaling problem over the years. So Ethereum was continues to be a haven for developers who are looking to develop application. And then again, we reached a scaling problem as use cases begin to grew on the blockchain in particular. So now we have layer 2s in particular, where it's helping facilitating all those transactions from that perspective in particular. So within the layer 2, we have the network bridges. So what are network bridges? Network bridges are essentially messaging protocols where it helps facilitates those transactions between two networks in particular. So it was thought until not much recent that there was no security concerns from a networking perspective, but until we saw one of the biggest hack coming from a network bridge. So from a cybersecurity perspective, we're looking so much at those security concerns in particular.
Great. So maybe just to paraphrase a little bit to understand what you're saying, you're almost saying like these standards allow us to have guidelines and rules where everyone can see how to actually play with the system. And when the rules are clear, that means there can be fewer security risks, whether that's from hacks within bad NFT contracts or whatever. And it's very easy to then standardize and see, hey, who are legitimate players or who might be careless and might need an audit versus, hey, this is an actual malicious thing that you're interacting with. So thanks for that. Maybe, Sida, since you've mentioned cross-chain and multi-chain, maybe you can expand on that a little bit and how these NFT standards will actually play out as we go into an increasingly multi-chain world.
Yeah, sure. So far, I would like to talk about from the user experience perspective, because this is like the only thing I care about. I care about like how the user feeling about the Web3 applications, especially those application layers. And I think the thing is like nowadays, if you want to play a Web3 app, the thing is like you have to download a wallet and a exchange, and you should be aware of like which protocols according to which kind of coins, and you should buy them and deposit them to pay the gas fee. A lot of those complex steps really ask those users giving up. So I think the multi-chain should be a really fundamental things for every application, because if you cannot serve the users to fix this problem, the users gonna just deny to use any application product by you. So I think for the interoperability and also for the multi-chain and also for those NFT standards, obviously very important to those developers who are dedicated into this industry. So I think I'm gonna make a very simple example like about the QR code, because QR code is very obviously very normal right now, but it was invented by Japanese in 1994. But the times just fly by, and it just got adopted maybe recent years, right? When the smart device, the smartphone come out, then people can use this camera to scan it, then read the content behind of the QR code. But before that, like maybe 2 decades, nobody used that, nobody adopt that. So this is the same situation compared to the NFT actually. So we already, maybe some of you already use the NFT, you already buy some NFTs in your wallet, and you just make it as a collection, but it's not scalable. Not everyone here can experience this kind of fun experience very simply. For example, maybe your mom, your dad don't have any NFT, right? So why not we just bring a very easy to use product to everyone? So this should be the technical people to think about how we can lower the barrier of entry, and how we can make more multi-chain support to everyone, and how we can, I don't think we should educate them about educate the users about it. We should just give them the product so they enjoy it and they understand it. Just like a QR code, you scan it, you get it. So I think this is probably the next step about the question we are talking about today.
Thanks for that, Sida. So yeah, as I understand it, the way you're describing it, like NFTs, because they are interoperable, All different types of wallets can support them. The user's not beholden to a certain, whether it's MetaMask or a different wallet. Like there's a lot of user optionality. And that same interoperability allows for the exchange of NFTs across different types of NFT marketplaces, and then the bridging of those NFTs to other chains where they can also be exchanged again. And so in a way, like NFTs become this fundamental building block for this new internet, where NFTs do represent true digital ownership and scarcity and provenance. And then if you'll afford me just like another minute or so of analogy that I like to think about that's similar to your QR code one, I think about the early days of the internet where HTML was this fundamental new primitive, right? It's a protocol, it's an interoperable standard, it's open source, and in the beginning, people were all kind of like creating their own HTML web pages and blocks, and websites were ugly, right? And people were like, hey, what is this? Like, why would anyone use this? I can go read a newspaper, I can go watch TV, I can go call my friend. What is this thing that allows me to communicate on the web? Well, it sounded silly at that time, but fast forward a few years, then you had these micro industries that now have become trillion-dollar industries 20 years later that were born from HTML as a basic interoperable primitive. So you had e-commerce, you had blogging, social networking, video streaming, all the apps that we use today on our phones, right? They, in a way, are built off of this HTML primitive. And so NFTs as the Web3 primitive for true digital ownership and provenance and scarcity, as I was mentioned, I think in the next, dozen years or so, we're going to see huge innovation across all these different types of industries. And today, when you use a web page, you don't actually read the HTML. You don't actually think, hey, this is an HTML web page with some fancy JavaScript on top of it or whatever. You're just like, hey, this is a useful e-commerce site, or it's a useful blog, or it's a useful X, Y, and Z. I think that's what's going to happen to NFTs in the future as well, if we're successful in using them as this interoperable standard. Vlad, we haven't had a chance to hear from you yet. Given all that we've talked about, what are some of the industries and markets where you think NFTs are really going to take off, and why are NFTs better than traditional Web 2 membership points or loyalty points or in-app currencies?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think the obvious one for me is the gaming space. The gaming market tends to adopt interesting new things quicker than the mainstream, and we're seeing a lot of gamification sort of like seep into real world activity. I mean, social platforms, your traditional Instagrams and TikToks of the world, the like mechanisms, the follow mechanisms, those are very light forms of gamification, right? When you think about you're trying to build up like your sort of social cred, it's all about how many followers you have, how many likes you have, that stuff. So that's already a light form of gamification. So, and that really, those ideas come from the gaming world. And so I think gaming is already starting to gain traction within Web3. I was at GDC a few weeks ago, and there was a pretty big contingency of Web3 gaming companies. And it just sort of makes sense. Like if you guys have played some of the like massive online games like Fortnite, people are already spending money on in-game items, on cosmetics, just buying like hats and shirts and all like unique dances for their characters and stuff. And right now, those are just being stored in Epic Games database, and you can be rugged at any moment by Epic for, not following the rules or doing something they don't like, or all kinds of stuff. And so blockchain is just sort of a natural fit for these digital ownership rights, where you sort of feel confident that when I'm buying this digital asset, like it is actually mine and nobody can take it away from me.
Yeah. That totally makes sense, and I think it's really cool if you can, in the future, take your gaming avatar or your digital sword or even a digital currency, if it's not all running on ETH by then, and be able to use it in different gaming experiences, right? Whether that's like a Meta VR experience or the new Apple AR glasses that are supposed to come out, like all these experiences are going to have game developers that are building these metaverse experiences, and if there's interoperable NFTs, then you can imagine it kind of bleeding all over the place and making a much richer experience. Cool. So, Kennashka, like, what other industries do you think will be radically transformed by NFTs, and why?
So non-fungible tokens, they're the new thing now, So there's so many different, underlying components from a cybersecurity standpoint that will be changed. Especially right now, there's not a lot of frameworks that are out to support the ecosystem that are widely available. We're looking at frameworks like OWASP Top 10 that are not being aligned currently to this space, which is definitely recommended. We do need some, framework and things of that nature in place. So going back to the security standpoint, so how are regular users able to, that cannot read code, are able to interact with smart contracts that they can't read? How do we prevent things of that nature from happening? So we're looking at things of that nature, in particular, phishing attacks. You think that you're, signing up for one of your favorite brands, and then something crazy happens. You sign a transaction, and all of your asset is not there anymore. So we're looking at ways of how to build a more secure community, so we can grow a little bit more stronger as a whole.
Got it. Sida, what about you? What are the industries or shifts that you think are going to be really transformative?
Yeah, since just like I mentioned, we serve for those creators and even every digital user. So I think from my perspective, it's like they probably can use the NFTs as more fun and more interactive, especially for the social connections. So for example, just like a really simple example, like you buy the engagement ring for propose, right? But it's just like represents the love gonna last forever. But I think this kind of elements is similar in the blockchain. So if you put an NFT and use it to mark your special moment or like special memory, and it's still on chain and lasts forever. So I think everything that you can map something in the real world. So this is that how we can use the NFT to shift these markets, especially for the social connections, social medias. So like they can just map in those special facilities or like utilities to the real world, and they just use it to gift it as like someone you loved, someone you want to work with, and to share your love or share your value, because the NFT is not just a normal photo. They contain the value and contains the special meanings. So I think this is probably just a small use case, but I just want to enlighten that, because I do believe that the Web3 should be the next generation of the internet. So I think everyone should has the chance to be engaged and to experience those charm from the Web3.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think we've talked a lot and we've seen a lot in the last couple of years how NFTs are really great at wrapping digital assets, right? So artwork, and we're, as Vlad was mentioning, gaming items now, we're seeing some really cool on-chain games. But really, if you think of the NFT standards, almost in its purest, dumbest form, it's just a blob of data that points to other data, but is encapsulated in something that can be traded across wallets, transferred across wallets, and as a result, NFTs can actually wrap real-world assets, right, or non-digital assets. So as an example, we recently did a home sale where a home was wrapped in an LLC, and the ownership of the LLC was wrapped within an NFT. And so people can now buy and sell homes as NFTs, like physical homes, right? And we believe there will be a lot of more real-world asset applications where you have, let's say, commercial real estate that's seen as a NFT, or a car, or a handbag, or a Rolex watch. And once these are tokenized as NFTs, they create more liquid markets that allow people from all around the world to trade them, whereas traditionally there's a lot of paperwork, there's a lot of overhead when you're trying to sell these goods. You can also fractionalize NFTs, right? And there are fractionalization standards that are coming around that then allow you to then take something that's fairly illiquid, perhaps very high in transaction value, and then break it down so that many participants can participate in the market. So I think that's truly fascinating too, like this new era of real-world assets into NFTs. Vlad, going back to you, like, what do you think are some of the biggest challenges we face as we try to push this technology forward, right? We're in this bear market, people are not believing anymore, a lot of people got hurt. So how do we succeed as an industry to transform these markets that we're talking about?
I mean, my company's focused on building like a really cool social experience around mapping, and so the most important problem we're trying to solve for is building a really cool application, irregardless of what's going on behind the scenes, right? So that's the most important. I think it's still early days with this whole space, and we talk a lot about standards, but there's a lot of competing standards. I mean, every blockchain sort of has their own version of an ERC, 721 and 1155, and the reality is that probably one or a few of them are going to win out in the long run. We talk about the internet, how it was built, TCP/IP is a standard. These token standards, they're sort of the same thing. So, and I think it's up to the people developing the applications to ultimately decide what those winning standards are and it's sort of like you build the best application, you're probably going to give that infrastructure a leg up on the other stuff. Yeah, so I guess like for me, when we built out our platform, that was a really gut-wrenching choice, is to stick with a blockchain. We picked the Polygon blockchain, and I know some people, they'll be like, well, we support every chain, and yeah, if you're EVM compatible, that is easier. But there's a lot that goes into that, right? And I think it's our responsibility to make sure that we think about the security and the viability of that infrastructure to make that right call from the start.
Yeah, that makes sense. Not all standards are created equal, and it doesn't mean that just because there's a standard today that it will always live on in the future. I'm reminded of way back when there was like Betamax versus VHS, right, as the standard for like playing back video. And so yeah, there's going to be a proliferation of these standards, almost like a Cambrian explosion of different NFT use cases as well as token standards. And then I think at some point, as Vlad was saying, there will be a almost like convergence, right? What are the winning standards on the winning chains? But then there will have to be enough interoperability between them to still allow for flexibility and developer optionality. And then I think, as Sida was saying, like eventually it should all be abstracted away where users don't really understand that. Maybe you have any closing remarks on like what a future looks like once users don't know what NFTs are, and like, how do people interact with NFTs when we don't really want them to know that they're NFTs?
I think it just maybe just in my my imagination, in the near future, probably everyone has the chance to create their own NFT with very simple step. And I want them just to give up all those complex steps to get what they really want, really need. So I think, for example, I don't think I'm not sure if that's going to be a bullish on this, but it's like I think the exchange and the wallet is not really necessary as the first step they step into the new world. So the first step should be they do interact with the NFTs or with the people using the NFTs, and then they decide if they want withdraw this asset to their wallet, or if they want an exchange to send or trade the crypto. This is, for example, I think this should be the next step thing. But for right now, I think the things just upside. It was a little bit like reversed. So I think this is should be like our responsibility. I mean, this every builder's responsibility. If you do want to bring the user good experience, then you should not only follow the way they already going with, but you should go with another direction and try hard. So this is the thing I think it should be the near future about the really next generation of the Web3.
Yeah, so kind of like skate where the puck's gonna be, not where it currently is, or whatever that Wayne Gretzky quote is that I just butchered. But okay, we have time for one last point. So Kennashka, like, what are you most excited about, and maybe even what are you most fearful about as we go forward into 2023 with NFTs and everything that we're trying to work on together?
I'm most excited about soulbound tokens. So soulbound tokens are tokens that cannot be transferred, right? So we're talking about personal items that may be connected to us, like passport, certificates, high school diplomas, things of that nature. I would definitely like to see how that play out when it comes to interoperability in our future landscape moving forward.
Yeah, it makes sense. Like Vitalik has talked about this, like your college diploma or any professional certifications. In a way, we've also seen POAPs, although those have been traditionally tradable, but like just markers of whether you were here or you did something, and that can actually be a soulbound NFT that helps you create your new digital identity for Web3. So yes, that's very, very exciting. I totally agree with that. So it looks like we're out of time. Thank you, everyone here. Hope you guys enjoyed the talk. Great speakers here all around, and I think a few of us will stick around afterwards if you have any questions.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.